If you're a woman leader, people call you aggressive instead of smart. They call you autocratic instead of leaders. Not to say the first thing that comes to my head. Stay away from her if she's in a bad mood. Take a deep breath and continue the discussion the next day. So, this work-life balance is something that I struggle with. You say it best when you say nothing at all. Hi, I'm Zia Mody. I'm the managing partner of AZB Partners, which is one of the leading law firms of the country.
Zia Mody, welcome to Qunba. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you today. Zia, what turns a person into a leader of people?
Leadership is established over many, many decades. The qualities of leadership which you should have ingrained in you, basically from the beginning, is a sense of not only IQ, but a lot of EQ, an ability to communicate fairly and honestly, to demonstrate to the team that you lead of your ability to sway the way and influence the way people think to your point of view, which should in essence be a just and fair point of view, which then leads to a good outcome for everybody.
Zia, what do you feel is the one most positive change that you've noticed in the Indian leadership landscape?
The wantingness to have good governance and to be known for that. Not have scandals hit their companies and get the front page news for the wrong reasons, and to also invest more than I've seen before in their people, and also think globally rather than only domestically.
And what do you think are Indian leaders exporting to the world on leadership?
I think there are global CEOs who are Indian, and therefore to that extent India has exported its leadership. I think if you look at our multinationals here, like the Tatas, the Reliance and the Birlas, they also have become Indian globals, if you like. And so their leaders are also respected, learnings from them sought after, and they have themselves demonstrated that they can create an army of people who in turn can be leaders. It's not just one leader at the top, but there are many leaders along the way.
What do you think are two most underrated qualities in leadership today?
The lack of timely communication is sometimes underestimated. There is always communication, but does it come at the right time? I think that's important. Not being inclusive in your decision making, not really taking all the viewpoints into account before you finally decide what to do and what not to do, because the final decision is yours, because the accountability is yours. Have you taken all the right inputs from the right people?
What are some of the most misconceptions or myths about leadership that you would like to clarify?
I think there's no perfect leader. Leaders make mistakes. Leaders have to be able to say sorry. Leaders have to trace back and form new strategies depending on the time. Leaders have to think ahead and be purposive. Some leaders are caught up only with firefighting. Others have a longer term strategy in mind which they stick to, even though there may be bumps along the way. It's not one size fits all, frankly. It's not one organization is the same as the other. Different strokes for different companies, different strokes for different human beings. Some have qualities which far outweigh other qualities. So it's a mix, really.
Zia, in the legal profession, your expertise, your acumen, your clients that you bring in, the fees that you contribute really counts as you grow. But where does leadership fit on the index as one grows in a partnership in the firm?
I think quite high, because if you're going to be carrying teams along the way with you, it's not just one person at the top. It has to be multiple layers of leaders. And each of them have to carry their own teams, and so on and so forth and so forth. So there are mini leaders, if you like, leaders in their own right, super leaders. But everyone who is in that position has to be in that position, because if you don't have enough of a set of people who believe in you, who will respect you, and who will follow you, then you will never be able to grow.
And just double-clicking on that, how does one build an institution truly beyond the realm of the name partners?
It's not easy, because in India especially, the firms have been started out as smaller firms. The personalities are dominant. That is changing simply because, as I said, you can't grow as a law firm unless you have more than just one named person. In our case, if it was only Zia Mody, we wouldn't have AZB Partners, because Zia Mody can't do more than 24 hours a day. The senior leaders of our firm are exquisite in their competence, in their ability to grow, in their retention of clients, in their delivery of service. So that's, I think, the difference. Even though personalities may dominate maybe even for a little while longer, in the short to medium term, other personalities themselves will get standing in the profession. And they already are being known with standing.
Zia, what's the most common piece of career advice you've heard of but completely disagree with?
So, this work-life balance is something that I struggle with. I don't think that work-life balance really works for everybody all the time. I think that, again, if you're going to leadership, it becomes a situation where you have to invest so much time in the organization itself. That takes away from actually the work-life balance part. The notion that everybody has to fall in line with whatever the leader says is not necessarily the best outcome, because then people are inhibited from sharing their views. So if you have, a situation where the emperor has no clothes, then you're really not going to be able to understand the lifeblood of the organization and the culture.
3 ways you think women can navigate power structures.
I think they have to still find their way, many of them. I think a lot of women are by nature shyer. As they grow and see role models and know that the organization is willing to give them equal space and that there is no glass ceiling for being a woman, their confidence level in them grows, and their ability to express their views, show their talent, interface and front face with clients, and it all becomes a circle, because then they have girls and young women in their team who again look to them as role models. So I think you have to start somewhere. And the main thing is that the male leadership of the firm has to recognize the talent.
2 misconceptions about women in leadership roles that you would like to clarify.
I think it's the standard stuff, right? If you're a woman leader, people call you aggressive instead of smart. If you basically take decisions which everybody doesn't agree with, then they call you autocratic instead of leaders. I think that will change.
Zia, do you think reverse discrimination is a myth, or is it now creeping into corporate India? And how do you address concerns that sometimes are stemming from the men who say that they could be losing opportunities due to focus on diversity?
I don't agree with them, because, industry has been male-dominated for centuries. If you don't have women in the mix, you'll never see diversity. And it's not that every man is a genius. They just have to accept that there is a broad pool of talent there called women. And as Mao says, we hold up half the sky. I'm a Baha'i by religion, and one of our religious commandments is that men and women are equal. So in my mind, there's no distinction.
Zia, how do you suggest women in early leadership roles handle the guilt that sometimes comes to meet demands from home, family, work, and children?
It's difficult, and it's there. And it stays there for a while, and you have to learn to deal with it. And sometimes you have to just take a bit of a pause from your career, sometimes even just a long weekend, just to make sure that guilt doesn't eat you up. But guilt comes with the enemy's time, and what you end up sacrificing most of the time is good time with the family.
3 words that best describe Zia Mody, the leader.
Passionate, slightly impatient, but affectionate.
You have often spoken about the importance of saying no, even if it comes at a cost. As a leader of an organization, what value have you found in saying no?
I don't think that's a problem. Our partners have always had debates with me and with each other. I think as an organization, we actually encourage it, because then through that debate, the best solution comes out. And that partner or set of partners could just have more domain making the decision. So unless you get all the input in, how do you make the right decision? A debate is great fun, is always welcome.
Over the span of your career, which decade was the most pivotal from your leadership perspective, and why?
I think the early years that I started with Chambers of Zia Mody, we were just 12 people, all young, all fighting to be recognized, to be known as good lawyers. And there the leadership was really more keeping everyone together, making sure you are on top of every game, wondering how to deal with the competition of 100 lawyers, 200 lawyers when you were just 12, empowering and getting the young band as enthusiastic about the outcome and the future way forward, as I was.
Zia, from leading countless M&As, JVs and disputes, what's the most important quality that has helped you get two sides to agree on?
To be fair for both sides, even if you're representing one client and he's being unreasonable, you take him into a room, get into a huddle and tell him he's being unreasonable. And that there are certain things that he would have to do to get the deal done, because if both sides are not equally happy or equally unhappy, then you won't have a deal.
What is the biggest risk you have taken in your career that has paid off, and one risk that hasn't?
To grow. I never thought that when we were 12 people, we would be 550 people today. It has its own set of challenges. The challenge is all about people. Each lawyer has pride and self-respect, which has to be honored and respected. But as the size grows bigger, the challenge becomes bigger.
What does Zia Mody do whilst giving feedback to senior partners at AZB?
Give feedback on the problem statement, because most of them come to me when there's a fire, to make sure they have looked to the team for the excellence of the research, so the input that goes into their decision making when they come to me, the correct one, to foster an atmosphere of collegiality.
Zia, how do you run an effective meeting, and what are 3 things that Zia Mody does in a meeting?
I get briefed beforehand so that I know what's going on. I don't walk in cold. I give my understanding of what the meeting is supposed to be to the entire meeting, whether it's a meeting with only our clients or with both sides. I put the pain points on the table so that there's no you didn't think this or I didn't think that. I sort of set the pain points out there, and then we start talking about possible solutions. And when it doesn't work for the other side, and I feel that it won't work for the other side, then, as I say, I take my client into a huddle and see what to trade for that give. Similarly, if there is something that our client should not be giving, then I will advise them in front of the other side not to give. I prefer larger meetings where everybody's on the table. It just saves time.
2 things you value or relate most about the culture at AZB, and 2 things that you would like to drive or infuse more of in AZB.
One of the main things that I love is that everybody is vested in the quality of the firm. Everybody would die for the letterhead virtually, and everybody knows that anything goes wrong with the letterhead, all the partners weep. The next thing is that the training that they get at AZB is of value. The mentorship is good. And therefore, what you're bringing into play is a better crop of lawyers who are willing to think, who are willing to think out of the box, and who are willing to defend their position if there's a debate. What would I like to infuse more? More talent, for sure. More collegiality. You never get enough of collegiality. There's always more to be taken. And a sense of long-term purpose.
If Zia Mody had to ever retire, what is the 2 pieces of advice you would give to your successor about leading AZB Partners?
Be patient, communicate well, don't dismiss other people's views. And if you get into an unhealthy debate, take a deep breath and continue the discussion the next day.
What's the most brutal feedback you ever received in your leadership? Who did it come from? What did they tell you?
I think I've been told that sometimes I don't listen enough, and it's come from my senior partners. Very often they're right, and I'm willing to hear that and take a step back, and as I say, continue the conversation the next day.
I saw an interview recently with somebody, and they asked you about your micromanagement, and I think they used the word the charming dictator. What are the 2 most significant changes in Zia's leadership over these years?
I think less micromanagement, although micromanagement I think is still a problem I deal with. The dictatorship part I think is a reputation I find very hard to break. But I think that it's called benevolent rather than charming. If I'm held accountable for the firm, the balance sheet of the firm, the talent of the firm, the retention and stickiness of the firm, then I have to take decisions that may not always be popular or universal. But that comes as a cost of leadership.
Zia, how do you take tough decisions as a leader yet keep morale high?
By explaining why I take it, why people who don't agree with me should at least understand my point of view. If it is well reasoned, well thought out, well communicated, and is ultimately fair, that's the operative word, then most people, even though 10% may not benefit by that decision, they fall in line because they understand the logic.
What's the one failure you've gone through that has taught you something specific about leading human beings or people?
Not stopping things when it gets too far and then out of hand. When you could have put the guardrails and the stops earlier, and you don't do that because you don't want friction or you don't want unnecessary disturbance to the ecosystem. The next thing would be really when you are faced, as I was in court as a barrister, a lot of men in the court where you were the only woman. That was hard. To hold your own, to keep your space, to keep your dignity, to keep the respect of the court. Those were difficult times.
What creates self-doubt for a Zia Mody, and what do you do and how do you overcome it?
I think the self-doubt comes when some of the decisions I've taken have not given me the outcomes that I thought they would. At that time, you become mentally a little more fragile that, how could I do this, or should I have done something different? And then you turn to your senior partners for counsel.
What's that one thing you wished you had known more of about leading people?
How to keep the balance better amongst my colleagues. Every organization has politics. How to keep the politics to the minimum. Some people think of themselves as too much more intellectually superior to others, so that their leadership then gets affected. How to let the young leaders who are hesitant about their own competence, to encourage them to display their competence and to reward it with a small gesture or a smile or a cup of coffee together or just a laugh together, so that they know they are appreciated. Senior partners in our firm are absolutely fantastic in the sense that they have domain, they have EQ, they have IQ. I'm hoping that they will be the future leaders of the firm. But everybody has to be collegial. That's the bottom line.
Zia, an industry filled with prima donnas, how do you manage conflict and egos? And what is your advice to leaders?
It's tough. It's just tough. Just talking to them.
Zia, in your formative years, who influenced your early thought process on leadership? And what is that one lesson that has stayed with you forever?
My mother, really. Same principles. Honesty pays, be fair, be just. You don't get anything by taking shortcuts. Hard work, there is no substitute for it.
Who in Business India is inspiring you right now and why?
You take Chandra. He's taken the Tata Group to another level and always with a smile. Great leader. Takes his team with him all the time. You take Mukesh, what he's done from the time he took over from Dhirubhai, the world has gotten up to notice and he has no intention of stopping as far as I can see. You take Kumar, who has inherited such a legacy and has kept it and grown it. Some hiccups along the way, but by and large, fully intact. Again, respected as an industrial leader in the country. And all these three have global recognition.
Zia, beyond their legal expertise, what do you rely on most at AZB Partners on Ajay Bail and Behram Vakil for?
Comfort, collegiality, to watch each other's back, to have honest conversations if there are different points of view, and to understand that you can't get everything your way and the firm comes first.
What was the most important leadership lesson you learned from your father, the late Soli Sorabjee?
Same story. Be honest. Never shirk work. Don't ever go to a court unprepared. Never lie to a judge. Never misrepresent to a judge. Judges eat at lunch. The minute you say something wrong, all the judges know what you are. The client comes second. The court comes first. You are an officer of the court. Don't sleep until you've cracked the problem.
With ambitions of making it to the top ranks in corporate India. But who are some women that Zia Mody draws inspiration?
My hero was Ruth Ginsburg. I just couldn't believe the life she led and what she did and how she did it.
Zia, if you were in my seat and had an option to put somebody there, who would it be and what would you want to ask them?
You got me. I've met everyone I want to meet. I don't really need to meet political leaders as much as an industrialist would. The people that I enjoy interacting with are doyens of the industry whom I know. Never really thought of it. Maybe a couple of CEOs of multinationals that I could learn from.
Zia, your quick fire with Qunba starts now. The hardest thing about being a CEO is dash.
Managing the disappointments and the views of other lawyers that don't align with yours in a drastic way.
One thing you've learned never to do as a leader.
not to say the first thing that comes to my head.
One thing you've learned always to do as a leader.
Be fair.
One thing you wish people knew more about Zia Mody.
That I'm fair.
One personality trait that gets in your way the most.
My temper.
One thing in your job that you could get better at.
My temper.
You could give up all your rewards and recognitions for a chance to do dash.
Create the best law firm in India by blue water.
The one lawyer, past or present, who you would never want to go up against in a courtroom.
My father.
Data, facts or instinct, what does Zia Mody bet on most?
Data coupled with instinct.
When in doubt, Zia dash.
Takes a deep breath.
First thing you do in the morning, last thing you do at night.
First thing is I check my iPhone. Last thing is I check my iPhone. After I say my prayers.
Your favorite workday time waster.
Work.
A secret vice no one knows about you.
Food.
What do you imagine employees would say about you in the corridors?
Stay away from her if she's in a bad mood.
The hardest legal negotiation you ever confronted was?
Trying to settle a matter between two warring families in court.
Besides her family, your most prized possession is?
The firm.
One thing on your personal to-do list that's been there for the longest time.
More travel.
A cheesy song that you are often caught humming in the car.
You say it best when you say nothing at all.
Your secret daydream.
More sleep.
If legacy was a person, it would be dash.
I would say Mr. J.R.D. Tata or the Tata founder.
Behram or Ajay, who do you argue with the least?
Ajay.
A buzzword in business or legal circles you really dislike.
Over-aggressive.
One thing that you don't want to hear in a meeting.
You're talking nonsense.
3 standout traits that you look for in lawyers.
Intelligence, honesty, collegiality.
If you weren't a legal mind, you would be?
Can't think of anything else.
What would Aarti, Behram and Ajay all agree with about you?
She works too hard.
What does Zia's family discuss most at the dinner table, and what do they disagree with about the most?
Argue about trivia like all family. Talk about plans to travel, to be together, because as you grow older, the holidays are different, the children are different, the agendas are different. So just planning.
The women's reservation bill in one sentence.
Necessary.
Zia Mody's legacy will be?
Be remembered as a good lawyer and hopefully a decent leader.
Zia, if you had a gigantic billboard out there, what is the message you would put out to millions and why?
Be nothing but honest to yourself. Look in the mirror every day, even if you don't tell people what you see. Know what you are, know who you are, understand your weaknesses, know your strengths, and just try and improve every day in whichever system you are in, and work for the benefit of the people around you, including yourself.
Zia Mody, thank you very much for this candid chat with Qunba. It's been an absolute privilege having this conversation with you.
I think the platform basically is asking questions that are not the usual ones. They want to dig deeper into the mindset of the people they interview. It's more intrusive in a nice way, and it's sharper. It puts the questions that sometimes are awkward to answer, but if you answer them honestly, I think it's for the benefit of the audience.
Okay, rolling. Sound check, mic check, ma'am. Say something for. Yeah.
Hi, check.
Okay. Audio cool? Perfect. Yeah. Superb.